Coaches and affiliate owners, we are super excited to launch our FitFilliate Founders League. It is hosted over on the School platform, and you'll find a link in the show notes or a link in our bio over on Instagram. This is a group where there will be high-level conversation, high-level thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, a little bit of fun, but the end game is everybody is helping everybody else be better. So I'll see you over there.
The semantics of what's going on inside or outside of CrossFit. It's like
I knew Lisa was going to hit record.
Everyone here is a lifelong athlete that loves training. Everyone wants to share that passion with people and bring something good to the world and hopefully provide a value. And everybody, believes in that kind of the core principles. And whether it's constantly varied functional movements executed at a high intensity or the zone diet, it doesn't fucking matter, it really doesn't. And I think it's good to evolve, because if you don't evolve, you're going to die. You're going to die quicker, at least. And I think that when I listen to some of your stuff, guys, I think that's what I hear, especially from Andrew, is coming up with ways to be like, how do we evolve this to ensure our survival and to be able to continue to do what we all love to do? Because I can't ever imagine myself doing anything else. It's kind of hard.
Are you Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously you and I mean, we can't go into all of our history. Maybe we're going into some.
We're here now. We hit record, so we're here.
Yes, you did. Yeah, what I've been seeing lately, Dave, you're getting back to a lot of like fucking plyometrics, running, a little bit of running. And so what's funny about Thunderbro is that when we started it, we were you still are, but like the hunger that we had, I mean, dude, our energy, we could have fucking started a new country. Like at the end of the day, there was that grit. And part of my grit, which I wanted to eventually get to, was that athletic side to where you show me your backflip, show me you can run a 10K, and then show me that you hammer weights in the gym like a true gangster. And what's funny is Nick Bear really tried to come in and just dominate right now with the run lift thing. And like, talk to me on your thought process on the culture of the run lift. I got to know that right now, or I can't sleep.
Well, I mean, before we even get there, because I know you're talking to a lot of affiliates, and I always think about stuff going back to like the vision, the values, the mission statement, right? So Thunderbro's mission statement is finding innovative solutions to bridge the gap between aesthetics and performance. And so for me personally, I and a lot of our athletes too, everyone's got like a slightly different goal, right? So everyone, like some people are doing this so that they can continue to CrossFit and do the open without getting all banged up or being able to see progress when they've just plateaued. Some people are doing this because the aesthetic piece, like I just want to look the way I want to look. Some people are doing it because, for me, I was competing in bodybuilding, right? So obviously that tweaks the formula a little bit, but what defines us is the fact that we are bridging the gap between aesthetics and performance. So whatever it looks like, and we've launched a lot of cool stuff lately. I don't know if you saw, we got the Oli program with Chad Vaughn now.
Yeah, I did. I like that.
We've got the Power Anarchy program with like killer conjugate powerlifting and all of our nasty hypertrophy stuff. We're doing a program with Chris Hinshaw, which is going to be, and you'll probably like this, Andrew, the Hybrid Anarchy program, right? I run, but I also want to look like a beefcake. Yeah. But for me, what I realize is that in pursuing competitive bodybuilding, none of my counterparts are interested in doing anything athletically. They really are. Like
except Stan. Stan wants to be an athlete.
Stan's down for it. But like the competitive bodybuilders, and this is because just like if you pursue high-level CrossFit, it's the same thing. Yeah. You're going so deep on one side that you're going to have to sacrifice other stuff. So like they won't ever run. They won't do anything ballistic. Most of them don't like to even get off of the machines at all because the machines are safer and they're great for building muscle. And if you think about a career, it's probably safer to train on machines. But for someone like me and all of our athletes who want to be able to use that fitness not only on the stage, but outside the gym and sport and life, or just be like that alpha dog that can just like, you know, the one that the parents at the preschool or whatever, they just fucking hate you. You know, just fucking guy. That's what I'm really interested in is being able to like hold my own aesthetically with some of the best amateurs in the country, but also be able to outlift all the big guys and be able to sprint and jump into a 10K and do all that stuff. And it's kind of like really pulling on the same notes that drew me to CrossFit, right? Of being like, I don't want to be one thing. I want to embody this idea of physical culture. And then also for the sake of longevity too, you know, I think about things like my heart health and my cardiovascular health. I think about just my elasticity and explosiveness. I can't do a lot of stuff anymore, right? I don't really like Olympic lift anymore. Like that's a recipe for disaster, but I can jump with dumbbells, you know. I might not be doing a lot of 40 yards dash sprints anymore, but I can do a sprint progression and not stop. What most people do is, you know, I think the majority of people, this stops after their sport specific athletic career in like ball sports, right? The basketball, Andrew, baseball for me, football, you know, whatever, the track, it usually stops and they never ever sprint again. They never ever jump again. So I started thinking of, for those guys like myself who've really gotten away from that, what's the progression going to look like? And so I really started focusing first on preparing the tissue because this is my big fear was like, I'm going to blow out an Achilles, I'm going to tear a hamstring, I'm going to tear a shoulder, I'm going to tweak my back. So I'm like, I really need to focus on tissue prep, especially because as you get older, you know, you lose some of the collagen in your tissue that provides that elasticity. So, you know, I got this vibrating foam roller, which is amazing. And I'll like foam roll my calves and foam roll all the IT band and get the TFL loose. And then I just started with like small jumps, like, you know, footwork, agility stuff. And then as that felt better, I started incorporating more and more advanced things. But what I really want is to have a progression for guys and girls that have stopped to be able to rebuild that elasticity. And I think that like in CrossFit, you see like, oh, we're going to jump on a box. Like even that, I think not just the act of jumping, the act of landing is very injurious or very risky. So like maybe we have to build up to that or modify that to be able to still use that level of athleticism, but there still needs to be some presence of it in a training program to be more complete. You know, no program's going to be complete. Like Greg said it right. Every program is incomplete based on every program has a problem that it's not fulfilling. But the beauty in it is you can take the principles and figure out, well, what's the right formula for you to create the best program for where you're at now. So yeah, I love that stuff.
Here, I got something. So, because Tony is a very like Tony is a mind that like therapist. No, not therapist. We hate the word therapy. Tony's mind. I want nothing more than for you, because the mindset that you and I had and the mindset of, besides training, there was something missing in the fitness space. And I remember thinking like, it's people afraid to admit that they're bored of what they're doing, that they don't feel empowered anymore. This shit's not fun. It's not funny. They just feel like their dick's in the dirt. That was my favorite one you used to say in the very beginning. And I think if we kind of go through a little bit of an origin of Thunderbro, like, you know, people on seminar staff, like Dave and I knew each other, but it's not like we knew each other, you know, that fucking well. You see each other on the weekends. And then I remember when he sent me an email, because we had chatted, I sent him an email back every couple days, like, hey, and not to be annoying, but just so I want to talk to people, like, if you ever want to start something, be relentless. That was the first thing. I was relentless. I was like, I'm not going to let him forget about it, because I believed in the idea we talked about so well. And then finally he responded, fucking finally, and basically said like, this is what we're going to do, but if we do it, like, you got to come out here. And I remember I didn't have $2,000 to spend to come out. Yeah. And I remember putting the plane ticket out, telling my wife, I'm like, hey, I got to do this. And Dave had just literally had back surgery. And I'm hustling to get dude, I'm hustling to get these shirts together. There's like, we're rough. You know, Dave can barely stand up. Luckily, I mean, Tosh was out there kind of helping you out.
You had to hand me the dumbbells.
Yeah, I mean, I had to hand him the dumbbells to get photos. But at the end of the day, I remember like staying up late. And when we hit the launch button, when you find a partner that you can matches your creativity equally, but you each bring something different to the table, dude, you gotta run on that. Our first thing that we took was that 8x8 video where I'm in the background holding a sign and I'm like faking a phone call to you and you're just screaming 8x8. The volume of people that saw that, loved that, and it touched and felt their heart was astronomical.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because I don't think it was like the specifics of what we were talking about. I think it was how it was making people
100%.
feel, you know, and that's one of the tricky things about, I think, just like marketing is, it's really about pulling an emotion from somebody. And luckily what we had was like, it was more than a training program, because like it was a really cool, like revolutionary idea. We're going to take high level bodybuilding concepts and pair them with functional movements and minimal equipment so they can do it in CrossFit gyms and, you know, blend the form and function. Like, that's a great idea. But I think the other piece of that was like the cultural and mental idea of like bringing unders, like not being afraid to be curious and just go full meathead, or to almost like regress back to your childhood heroes, like that person you wanted to be, that big version of yourself, and really embracing that. So like the things we were pulling from that inspired you and me were like WWF wrestling and the music, you know, the metal music from the 80s and the 90s, American Gladiators, like,
and male humor. Like, we were the first ones to talk about, you know, like, it's okay to, like, you know, want to be an alpha male inside of everywhere.
Like celebrating like healthy masculinity. And it wasn't like the kind of like, fuck you, I'm so tough kind of thing. It was more of like a life of the party. Let's get out of hand and have fun doing this and really take the stress out of it and just make it this beautiful party and community of camaraderie and bros coming together to celebrate feeling like dudes. I think that's what really kind of spoke to people. And I mean, obviously we were so shocked because you were mentioning like, oh yeah, you know, neither one of us had a lot of money to spend to get this going. And I remember the first day we launched Thunderbro and the site went live, it was a Friday. I think it was in July.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was so worried that you weren't going to make your money back. I was like, man, we put down like $2,000 for the website and the t-shirts, and we got these ebook graphic designs. Like, I really hope Andrew makes his money back. And we made it back in the first day. You know? So it was great just to see the appetite that people had for this. It's something we didn't even know that there was such a demand for. We were just talking about it because we like it and are passionate about it and live it ourselves. And it was almost surprising in some ways to see and hear that a lot of people wanted the same thing. And so then the challenge becomes, how do we deliver it to them? How do we expand this? You know, how do we take advantage of that in a way that's going to help grow the brand into what it can be?
And I think, like, from my perspective, seeing that launch, but owning an affiliate at the time, and I had members that I knew that traditional CrossFit no longer served them. Like, they were, you know, slightly older, they were beat down, they had a lot of stuff going on. And I had one of them come to me one day and say, you know, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to leave unless we can come up with something else. And, you know, that's why I think when Thunderbros first launched, it resonated with people. They're like, oh, I can still get fit and look good, but I don't have to do, you know, 75 snatches in 2 minutes. Like, I don't have to do that. And if a gym can create a space where they can do that, you know, Thunderbros or, you know, functional bodybuilding, they're like, oh, this is better for my body, but I'm still meeting my health metrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think if you think about it from like the gym owner perspective and the athlete perspective, you know, we're really looking to answer two big questions. The first one is, how do I continue to train hard as I get older? Because we know we need the intensity to get the results, but what does that intensity need to look like so that I can still push it without hurting myself. Or, like you'll see a lot of people being like, I can do it, it's going to hurt. Or you got these nagging injuries, or maybe just like the very nature of the program isn't providing enough recovery between body parts to really let the tissue heal and remodel and that kind of stuff. And then the second thing is like, how do I continue to see results when what I've been doing is just run its course? It's just tapped out. Like, I'm not getting much stronger. I'm not getting much faster. So like, what do I need to do? And, Andrew, we used to talk about this in the seminar, but it's just like really focusing on more of the biological adaptations of just increasing your physical body, increasing your hardware, raising your contractile potential. And then the byproduct of that is, oh man, I love the way I look. That gratification from looking in the mirror and loving what you see. But now we're starting to think about it a little bit more from the gym owner perspective too, of answering questions for them, like, how do I reduce attrition, right? How do I why are people leaving? And I don't know if there's any one reason why, but I would imagine getting banged up, an injury, or this is too hard, this is too advanced, this is too intense for me, is definitely probably one of them. The other reason might be the program isn't really serving my goals. Like, I want to pursue powerlifting or Olympic lifting, or I want to do more of the aesthetic stuff. So I think that in some ways can provide an answer for them, to incorporate it at some level. And it doesn't have to be Thunderbro, but I think it's just understanding what's the context of hypertrophy within this formula that a lot of people love, but are finding that they have to leave. And I think the other big question for the gym owners is like, how do I get new people, right? Like, how do I attract new people? Because CrossFit, Andrew, when I started, Tony, and when you guys opened your affiliates, I'm willing to guess it might have been at a time where you could just throw up a flag that said CrossFit and you would get clients.
Not even. You didn't have a sign in the building. You thought that was cool. You're like, if you found me, it's Fight Club. Like, it was just your den in the corner.
It's not hard to grow a membership when you're the only affiliate in the state.
Right.
Yeah. And you remember how gyms used to get so upset? Be like, just another gym that opened up the town next to us.
They still get upset about that. Ask Andy.
Yeah, exactly.
They do.
You're upset now that you have to compete.
You know what's funny though, Dave, is like, at least I know you say something, but I'll forget this. So a lot of owners. So when a lot of times when I'm in rooms now, I don't shut up, or I'm whatever. And what I want people to understand is, when you have a friendship with someone first, you're going to have a business with, you need to understand, like, I remember this quote that said, you'll never know how successful you can be if you're always trying to be, person number one. You could have been an amazing number two. And that hit me hard, because I'm like, I've never been a number two. And I remember going to this business, talking to myself, and I'm like, I'm going to be number two. And for my personality, it grew. But how we yinged and yanged off one another, I want to give two specific examples. We got our first piece of negative feedback like 6 months into this thing. One single piece of feedback. And I called her.
Honestly, I'm shocked, because there was a lot of stuff we could have done better. Okay.
Yes. So one negative thing, and I lost my shit. I think I was with Dave at the time. I think I was at your house. I'm like,
book, right?
Like,
it was
Dave,
like an ebook, and the guy's like, this ebook is bullshit. There's spelling errors and blah blah blah.
Yeah. I was so fucking angry. I'm losing my mind. And Dave, like, he's like, dude, give him his fucking money back. Who cares? Like, he was so positive, and I was like, oh, I think I need to do that. I think I need to be better at that. Or like, we went to the Arnold Classic, and a lot of work being done. We're killing it. I'm pretty good at presenting and selling right away. And Dave he knows, like, he actually is not that great at that in the moment. I'm sure he's improved. But in the time, it was like, Andrew, I don't even know how to operate the card scanner. Like, just and I was selling, and I remember I was tired, and the Bang Energy people pissed me off. And I was about to fight them all, because I have this switch. It's just like, people are always like, don't push me, man. My switch just goes off. It's like a tick. It just all of a sudden, just like Bang Energy. I was like about to ruin. And Dave was like, hey, it's good. You're good, man. Like, it doesn't. Fuck those guys.
I mean, it's like you just, and the reason why you react to that is because you're passionate about it. You love it.
You learn how to teach me to control the passion.
Yeah. And like, I mean, there's some roles that I'm better for, and there's some roles that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot stick. Like, somebody holding a book who's deciding if maybe they want to buy it. I just got to hover next to him, and I'm like, so you going to buy it or what? And I
just whisper in their ear.
Andrew, you were amazing at it's kind of like courting people, because my passion is the content. Like, that's what I love. I really believe in what we do. I've seen it work. I've lived it like that. I could talk all day about what we do. I do not want to sell anyone anything. And Andrew, you were going around and you were like brokering partnerships and wheeling. You're a relationships guy. And I'm more interested in just talking about the physiology of a muscle fiber. So, it was a good compliment. But even that moment when there were two moments I remember with you. So that was one of them, was like, you get negative feedback and somebody, by the way, like in a business, you're going to get people that always go like way over the top with the customer service or the complaints. I don't think it even has to do with you. I think it has more to do with them and what's going on in their mind or in their heart, or what happened to them previously. They think that they're going to get screwed, or, maybe it's nothing to do with you. That's number one. But the first thing I thought of is like, what kind of taste do I want people walking away from this brand? Like, I want everyone walking away saying, Thunderbro's fucking awesome. Those guys took extra special care of me. I feel like a member of the family. And when they expect you to react one way, and when you react differently, they're almost like thrown back and completely diffused. So, you got to curb that passion and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. You made a mistake and got double charged for something because you bought it twice. That's not your fault at all. We'll take care of everything. And here's a free something, and here's, X, Y, or Z. And now you've taken somebody who's about to leave the brand and they're becoming now a spokesperson for the brand. So I think that's like a really important thing. But then the other thing was, when we did start making some money, right? You called me, you were so excited. You're like, dude, we're going to be fucking rich. We're going to make millions. And I'm like, hold on, pump the brakes.
That's so Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's so excited. He's like, I'm like, pump the brakes. Let's just focus on what we need to do tomorrow. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, your emotions get carried away. And for me, it's like just staying focused, because I've seen it now. We've been doing this for years. We started in 2018? So we got 6 years deep, right? We've had some really.
No, I think it was 2017. I could look back.
So now it's almost 7 years deep. We've had some really great days, some really big victories. We've had a lot of shitty days. We've had some tough things, we've had to go through as a business. And I think the lesson I've learned is that whatever's happening, you need to stay the same. You need to stay focused on your process. And you can't let the fact that if it went well today, that doesn't mean that you need to take a vacation. And if it's going hard, you don't need to beat yourself into the ground to try to fix it. You just need to stay consistent and focused on, even keel is a good way to maybe describe that. And if you do that long enough, well enough, at the end, hopefully the chips fall where they're supposed to. And everything that happens is exactly how it's supposed to happen. So if there's a big problem that comes up with X, Y, or Z, it's also a fantastic learning opportunity to be able to fix something in your business and do it better. So it's not all bad. You don't even know if it's good or bad. Some things at the time I thought they were terrible and they ended up helping us. So, you just don't know.
Totally. There's a lot in that conversation. There's like 19 different ways that conversation can go. And I'm trying to figure out which one's the most valuable for someone listening to it, because honestly, all of it was just gold, even right up to that last part of it. What I do think is cool, I guess, going back to the sort of the origin story, and I'm glad you guys brought it up because it's a really intimate way to hear about the origin story, because it's you two just sharing stories, which is super cool. But with going back to that part and kind of how it all came to exist, there's two parts of it that I think are so important for business owners, entrepreneurs, and especially affiliate owners to hear, which is the first one, is something we say a lot, which is responsibility, which is your ability to respond, right? So when Dave said to you, like, hey, if we're going to do this thing, get on the plane, you had all the uncertainty in the world, but you were like, I can respond to that. I'm going to take the advantage, right? And it's one of the things that we try to help so many people with on our side is like increasing your ability to respond to opportunities that are thrown at you. Because so many entrepreneurs, back to like what Dave was just finishing on, increase the complexity so much. They're so out in front of the horse that like they've got so many things going on. When this milestone moment lands on their desk, they're like, I can't fucking take advantage. They can't get on the plane. They can't do the thing. They can't go to the thing. And they just watch this ship sort of sail away. So it's very cool for people to hear. And I hope people realize that part of it is like, dude, I'm not telling you to just take whims and jump on them, but your ability to respond to opportunities will be a direct correlation to the degree at which you'll experience success in life, right? Like,
yeah, and you just don't know, like I think now I've learned to prepare myself, whatever kind of comes around. I'm like, if we're going to take this on, and it may sound good, and it may sound like it's going to be like a quick, easy fix, but I just know it ain't going to be easy. Right. It's going to take a lot of sex and magic to make this happen. And it's going to be hard, but the rewards can be bountiful, but just expect it to be harder than you imagine, because that way maybe you're pleasantly surprised. But I think when you get blindsided with like how hard things are, that's when you start losing your process a little bit, or your emotions get the better of you. And you start, instead of talking to yourself, you start listening to yourself, meaning instead of saying, stay focused, do this, all the stuff, the person you're aspiring to be, the business you're aspiring to be. And now your head is just saying things, and you're listening to the complaining, like, this isn't fair, we tried too hard, blah, blah, blah. Like you have to just continue to talk to yourself the right way.
And I think,
go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, one of the key points in that story is the fact that when you see an opportunity, and like Andrew is saying, you didn't have 2K to get out there and to get this ball rolling, but you're compelled to do it to make that happen because you believe so much in, the potential of what you were doing and this opportunity, versus, well, I don't have 2K, no one's gifting it to me, screw it. Like, you actually took steps to make it happen. And sometimes you've got to do uncomfortable things to make something happen because you believe in the potential of the opportunity. And I think as affiliate owners, people feel like they did that by opening their affiliate, but then they stop doing that. They stay well between the lines and be very safe.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like this felt a lot different to me because we did not start this to make any money.
Yeah.
Like, I
loved the money. Dave hated money. Dave used to say
that was never part of the initial conversation. The conversation was more like, this stuff is awesome. People need to know about it. Like, I want to share it. And if we do this and it flops, I'm just doing it for myself because I believe in it.
Regardless.
If it had flopped and I said the best, this brand got as far as we made a website, I wrote an ebook and a cool training program with Andrew. We got to spend time together, broing out and lifting weights and trying it. Even that would have been a victory, right? Because, we gave it a shot. Now, the fact that it did work, that almost was like a double-edged sword, because they're like, it worked. Fuck, now we got to keep going. We have to honor. We don't know the potential. We have to keep going. And that led into this really, conflicting dynamic for me, where I was, caught between CrossFit and Thunderbro, and they were not in line with each other.
No, they weren't in line. But Dave, I will tell you things I've learned since we've obviously have all these changed. Things I've learned from Thunderbro, I've brought to high-level rooms. And the number one thing I brought is the arrogance of the CrossFitter. I've been trying to eliminate that. And the story I tell, when we were at the Arnold, there was this dude bodybuilder. I didn't know him at the time. The dude was on so much trend. This is like the unhealth. Like, you can speak to drugs.
I've learned so much about drugs and bodybuilding.
Yeah, so this is not on the good. You can be on a very good and healthy side, as we know, and you can be on the complete. This dude was on, but that's his brand. He was willing to die for it. Like, think of 5% Rich Piana type guy. Anyway, I was talking to him, tatted on his face, whatever. And, I'm just sitting there going like, fuck, man, this guy's fucking huge. And he was like 6'7", I remember. And so I said, hey, man, we're the CrossFit guy. Like, we're having a good conversation. Nice guy. And he's like, oh, yeah. I've heard there's like some guys, kind of getting into some CrossFit stuff with bodybuilding. This must be you. And he said, you know what, man, I've always thought CrossFit was kind of cool. I was like, every time I talk to one of these motherfuckers, they say, get the fuck away from me. Bodybuilding's dumb. And I actually remember doing a genuine apology. I said, hey, man, on behalf of CrossFit, I want to apologize to you, because that's the stigma we're trying to break. And if you don't hear that story and it kind of hits you with a chill of maybe you've treated someone that way, then you need to revisit how you talk and handle people.
Yeah, I don't think it's exclusive to CrossFit either. I think you see that in a lot of communities. Look at like diets, like the carnivore community, the vegan community. It's like these tribes, and I think it almost always occurs when what you're doing starts to become a fabric of your identity of who you are and how you identify. That's a dangerous, toxic combination, because then you find yourself doing things that are really fucked up, but you're justifying it to yourself because you're trying to hold up that part of your ego. And I was wondering, like, where and why that dichotomy between bodybuilding and CrossFit, like why there was that back and forth, because it's not that way with powerlifting. It's not that way with Olympic lifting. It's not that way with kettlebells or running. So like, why is it that? And I think it really probably goes back to like Greg Glassman. And it probably goes back to him, working in Gold's Gym and getting kicked out of Gold's Gym, and I'll see all these beefcake trainers, and, maybe he felt a certain way that made him adopt this, this mantra in his head that bodybuilding is stupid and bad, and having a mirror in your gym is just so, egotistical and avoiding that. But I think that's like, I think it's funny because it seems like an equal and opposite expression of that, right? And it does something to people. I think it pushes people out of CrossFit gyms, because if you're someone who is in CrossFit, and everyone's there for a different reason, but I would venture to say that most people coming into CrossFit are not coming into CrossFit because they want to be the fittest man or the fittest woman on earth. They're probably there because they want some combination of, I want to look good and I want to feel good, and maybe I want to be able to do stuff too, right? But it's not that. So if looking good is one of your primary drivers, if that's your why, that's your motivator, right? That's your North Star of what got you there, and why you're paying $200 a month and driving in your car and taking time away from your family and punishing yourself in training. And now you're going to tell them, well, their goals are stupid. You're really cutting your legs out from under you. Why not embrace that and figure out, well, how do we help you meet your goal while simultaneously being able to still develop an overall level of fitness that's supportive of your health and longevity? Why would you finish that? I don't get it.
But I think people
really
just get
a lot of customers and a lot of opportunity on the table.
I think, a lot of people get stuck that their way is the only way. And like when I competed in powerlifting, at the time, the powerlifters I'd used to do powerlifting and strongman, and they'd make fun of me being a CrossFitter all the time. They're like, oh, you're going to kip that Atlas stone? Like, haha, funny, bro. But what they didn't what they didn't realize is, before CrossFit made this stuff accessible, and particularly for women, that it was okay to have a barbell, it was okay to lift heavy, it was okay to do, cool shit like this, that, their sport was very tiny. But now you've got all these people who like, oh, I actually prefer to lift heavy. I don't want to go run a marathon, ride a bike, do the stuff. I actually want to lift heavy things. Then the flow-on effect was those sports grew and evolved. And you may make fun of, the same as CrossFit made fun of bodybuilding, but, people have flowed from one side to the other. And when you've in an environment where people aren't fixated that their way is the way, then everyone can grow and evolve and benefit from it. So people who want to do more Thunderbro style, but their gym makes it, accessible and able for them to do that, they're going to grow, they're evolving. Whereas if they go, no, this is the only way, 21, 15, 9, burpees and thrusters 3 to 5 times a week, that's not going to let everybody grow, which is having that abundant sort of thinking about the space instead of sitting there, mine is the only way, and I'm going to make fun of everything that doesn't fit that paradigm.
Yeah, and I think just at a core level, it's just being in more of like a growth mindset, of being curious, not assuming that you know it all, and sometimes it's resisting that urge to feel so special and cool that you do whatever, that you start holding yourself back from those opportunities to grow. Because I definitely see that, even in bodybuilding. When I started pursuing bodybuilding, coming from CrossFit, I had no experience. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to do it was because I really didn't want to be full of shit. I don't want to be a faker.
Yeah,
if I was going to say
you had a deep fear.
Yeah, if I want to say we did CrossFit and bodybuilding, like people knew me in CrossFit. Andrew and I were, teaching level 1s and level 2s around the world. We've competed as athletes. We have the track record. We have the street cred, so there was enough there. But in bodybuilding, no credibility at all. Never really done it. So if I was going to say this is a blend of bodybuilding and CrossFit, I don't want to be the type of person that reads something in a book and presents it like they really know what they're talking about. So I wanted to immerse myself in it. And I went to this gym in Denver, Colorado, which is the best bodybuilding gym, I think, in all the West.
Phil Heath's gym.
Armbrust Pro Gym. It's where the 7-time Mr. Olympia Phil Heath trained. They got, 65 IFBB pros. Like, it's a real legit. And this is a dying breed because it's like a big box gym, but it's privately run and owned. It's been there for 30 years. And there's like hundreds of bodybuilders, old pinup girls on the walls and Dorian Yates. It was like just awesome, just fucking awesome. And I walked in there and I was like, just cold turkey off the street. Hey, I'm a CrossFitter and I want to do a bodybuilding show. And they laughed at me. Right? Yeah, like, yeah, okay, whatever, pal. Whatever, skinny guy. I wasn't that skinny, but skinnier. Yeah. And I love that because, I was back at the bottom of the totem pole. Nobody really knew me. It was an opportunity to prove myself. But when these guys saw, they were like, well, holy shit, this CrossFit guy, he works fucking hard. Like, he really pushes and he's strong. Like, he's competing with the biggest bodybuilders. He's like out lifting those big dudes. That started to give me some of that credibility with them, and then competing and learning and finding some success in the sport. Like, to me, that was like a really beautiful experience to have to earn that respect in a brand new space when I already felt like I had a good position in CrossFit. Very comfortable, did not need to do that at all. And then on the flip side of that, I had CrossFit colleagues, mostly from HQ, that were like laughing at me that I was interested in doing a bodybuilding show. I was like, why is it funny? Like, I think it's incredible. Like, be the first CrossFitter to get on a national bodybuilding stage and do it in a way that is kind of making these worlds collide. But I think all that is rooted in just ego, and our own self-consciousness that, I think that stuff really can hold you back if you don't realize what you're getting caught up in.
Yeah. I mean, it's first level mastery of pretty much everything, right? When you get to that first point, you think that you're validated by the answers that you have or the knowledge that you have, and it kind of perpetuates this notion of ego. But when you meet somebody who's like a true master, you meet like a Phil Heath or on one side, or you meet somebody else on the other side, and you realize like true masters all have childlike curiosity. They're just interested in pretty much anything, and they have no dogmatic approach to anything. They're just like, let's see what works, right? And I think that also goes back into kind of what we were first talking about in this, which is like, kind of the birth of Thunderbro. One of the reasons I'm pumped that you're on here is I think a lot of people know, obviously, of Thunderbro, and they saw where it came from and how it blew up. And so they obviously know it's in the ecosystem. And it's no surprise that we're big fans of anybody who does something unconventional, but really cool inside the space. And you guys obviously did that. But I think a lot of people don't realize it or how it comes to exist. And where I think you guys crushed it, or you nailed it, was in that curiosity conversation, which was like, hey, I think there's something here, right? Because if you'd have got stuck in your L1, L2 dogma, any of us did, we'd have been like, let's double down on the knowledge, right? And you guys are like, what is missing? And like, why are we looking for more? And so you guys were able to play with that. But the thing that you really crushed was that, it's Jack Trout's statement, but it's entering the conversation people are already having in their brain. That these gyms were full of people who were just like, hey, I'm stuck. Or, hey, like, I came here for this, but I'm still not where I want to be, or there's this thing, and you guys blew up on the scene larger than life with fucking hilarious videos. And we're like, let's just get fucking jacked, right? And people were like, yes, right? And you were trustworthy too, because you came from a position of like social trust or otherwise, and then it kind of blew up. So like on one hand, you had the Andrew's, responsibility thing, but there's another big piece of it, which is, entering the conversation people are having in their brain. And what I think Thunderbro really, really, it did a lot of really cool things. I was on those first ebooks. They were cool. I was like, I'm going to get jacked, and then I didn't, but that's okay. But I still got time. I'm not dead yet. I think there's another part of it too. We were all getting older, right? That's a huge piece of it, right? Like when we all started CrossFit, we were young. I was in my 20s. I was like, nothing hurts. And then at some point you have this conversation of like, what's next? So I wasn't really drawn to being like jacked and tan, so to speak, although who doesn't want that byproduct? But it was more like, I think I need more mass, I need more tissue, I need more hypertrophy because like the law of diminishing returns. But back to where I think Thunderbro really provides a value to the community, if you can get people back to curiosity, is like, hey, what's happening with your clients, right? Because if they are leaving or they are churning or they're not staying or they're burning out, the question is, are you talking to them, right? And you kind of already touched on this. And the answer is most cases they're not. And that's because most gyms, unfortunately, are just training gyms. They're not coaching gyms. And so they see something like Thunderbro as a competitor, right? Because like they're a training platform. Shouldn't I be the one training them? Like if you were just a coach and you said, hey, you want to get jacked, why would you bother writing a better training program than Dave? Right? Like, let's see what works here, right? Let's try this and see what's working with you. And so I think back to this whole piece of it, which was super cool about not only did you guys pop up on the scene and show people that, wow, there's so much opportunity inside this ecosystem. You also really highlight a thing that we talk about here all the time, which is the massive disparity inside an affiliate, which is the identity of a training affiliate versus a coaching affiliate, and how those two things are not uniquely the same. And everybody thinks that they are.
Yeah.
And you guys have that opportunity there with it, but it all comes back to, can they, as the affiliate owner, get to a position of curiosity with their clients, or do they think they have to have the answers?
Yeah. And I think like one of the issues is that, you know, at its roots, going through like the level one and just that kind of the initial administration of CrossFit, like Greg and the culture there is very like dogmatic rhetoric, right? Like they're talking in a lot of absolutes, like a lot of black and white. And that's problematic because with regard to training and nutrition, there's really no such thing as right or wrong. There is only context.
Correct.
There's only which is a better compromise right now. And so if you think about like the journey of a typical CrossFit athlete, probably similar to us right now, right? You get these people who maybe they started in sports and then they went to the regular gym and didn't really get results because they didn't know how to train real hard. They didn't know how to move real well. And then they found CrossFit and it gave them like a why. Like, I'm going to pursue elite athletic performance. It's a gamified thing, right? And now it's this, I got levels. I got the community, right? It really just sucks you in, takes over your life. You're watching CrossFit YouTube videos all day long and eating different, talking differently. Like it's scary. And now you're on this train where you're kind of locked in. You're in this bubble, right? And it's your friends are CrossFitters, your colleagues are CrossFitters. All you do is talk about CrossFit, eat, sleep, CrossFit. Like that's it. And you might get to a point where it's run its course and you've essentially aged out. And you can age out in two different ways. Like one, it's not just how old you are, but it's your training age, right? Like I think in CrossFit, what I'm typically seeing is about 5 years is the training life, where after 3, there's not much more progress. And after 5, you got a thing, you got a bat, so you're kind of run its course. And you're maintaining whatever you've built and just trying to hold on to it probably. And so the question becomes, if I'm kind of aging out of this and I'm starting to see this downward trend, how do I evolve it, not abandon it? It's not an abortion of this, because like there's too many valuable things to let go of. There's too many valuable things like the movements, practicing compound functional movements that have like a lot of utility, a lot of bang for your buck, in and out of the gym, great training effect. Like you don't want to just stop doing that. It's unrivaled. You need to practice them in some combination. Can you introduce machines? Hell yeah. That's a great compliment. Like for a guy like me with back reconstructive surgery, I'm never going to back squat like 500-600 pounds again with a barbell at least, like never going to do that. But I can load up the hack squat with a bunch of weight and be able to train hard and intense and still get just as much, arguably more benefit from certain perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. And then just kind of figuring out, well, what is that context for introducing these tools you have? And for me, this specialty is obviously like hypertrophy and understanding how much hypertrophy, what does it need to look like? But you don't have to, it's not one or the other. And I think if you start to kind of get out of that dogmatic thinking and start to pursue more context of it, that's when you can start really figuring things out for like what's going to work for you or your clients right now. And you can still be a CrossFit. I mean, you think about like the formula of CrossFit's so broad, constantly varied. In Thunderbro, we use undulating periodization. Every week we have a training split, legs, chest, back, shoulders, arms, but every leg day, it's a different squat variation, or it's a different hinge variation, or a different single leg variation. Functional movements, there's no reason to get rid of that. They still have value. Maybe it's not only functional movements. And intensity, that's the one thing that I really think needs clear definition of. Instead of reducing it to power output, I think we should think about it more in terms of like the RPE, right? The rate of perceived exertion, the training effect of how close are you to mechanical failure where you can no longer. And this is a big adjustment for CrossFitters, because for us, it's not what you're doing, but how you're doing it that makes the biggest difference. So we'll use a lot of different, what we call intensification methods to make lighter weights feel harder. So whether that's a tempo or a drop set or an isometric or a superset or a cluster set, it's just, how far can you take it while performing the movement properly before that technique starts to break down, and how much pain can you take in terms of how far you're willing to push yourself. When you do that and you focus more on the training effect versus the score on the whiteboard, it takes a lot of pressure off. Because now you're not making bad decisions. You're not like.
And also, what's funny, Dave, is you pushed me to. Heck, you're the one that pushed me indirectly to set that kettlebell record. Because I remember when you were doing the bodybuilding thing, I was like, I got to do fucking something different that enamours me. So I remember doing the kettlebell. Yeah. Well, but he also, I sat down with Dave, and Dave can rant forever. But when you sit down with him with college professors and hear him talk about muscle hypertrophy, I was like, man, I need to get smarter. Like because he's a very smart guy when it comes. That's why he's obsessed with it. But one thing I think that is currently untapped was the more aerobic side. So I got into aerobic stuff. It's very boring, but there's a lot of things that we screwed up, and just being curious is exactly what people need to do about their methodology. Like I'm still curious today. I think there's something missing in aerobic bodybuilding where you find your aerobic base and you're dealing with the heart rate on a C2, for 2 minutes. And then on the other minute, you do tempoed push, tempoed pull. And then you do that for an hour. It's 120 reps of each. You have muscular damage. You have, if it's done on a good tempo. And those are only things where when I sit with people now, they're like, how do you know so much about this shit? I thought you were a crypto guy who just worked for CrossFit. And I'm like, oh, no. Like at one point, if you think you're smart in training, you need to really, 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 really be curious, and then figure out why you're curious, and then obsess of why you're curious. And I think that's what we were doing.
Yeah. And I see some gyms out there from affiliates that are doing a really interesting job, like evolving their programs too. Like, CrossFit Invictus does a lot of hypertrophy training. And I think there's low hanging fruit. Like if you're an owner there, just wondering, how do I maybe try to improve the program? Where might I start? First, think about, well, what might be the problems, why you see the attrition. Like I said, it's probably going to be something injury related, something intensity or skill related. So like, what can you do? I think you can still do CrossFit with the training split, right? So, and I think that training split is magic in terms of like getting people to see progress, because instead of training legs Monday and Wednesday and Friday, and then maybe not, it's just like sporadic and not planned, you start to have more focused days during the week where it's like, this is where we break down the tissue of your lower body. And then we have 72 hours to recover before we do that again in some fashion. I think that goes a really long way just in terms of reducing injury, enhancing recovery, and kickstarting progress. And then, one thing we've done, because even our programs evolved a lot, Andrew. I mean, we have a zillion programs, but one thing that we started incorporating the last few years are these like down regulation days. And we call them down regulation capillary flow days. And that's an opportunity, like you're still in the gym, but you're doing some very low intensity work for like 45 minutes. It's like zone 2 steady state, and then some pump work.
Much slower than recovery day.
Yeah, just increase your vasculature and people like, I think especially in CrossFit, they love going to the gym because they love the community, love being around people. It doesn't always have to be as hard and as fast as you possibly can. You can just do that in a group, and even in our seminars. And we're working on something really cool because we really want to create a group training model where people are doing muscle anarchy in a class setting. So it's like people are similar size and strength. Just having that group setting where you're doing hypertrophy training, but you're with a team and you're in a trainer-led group. I think that is also a tremendous tool to have, because now it's not like you're off on your own in the corner doing your hypertrophy work, but you're still preserving the community and the trainer-led, environment that people really want and need.
Yeah. I think one of the, again, back to the curiosity thing, one of the values of the company here is nothing exists in sameness. Everything either grows or dies, right? And I think so much energy is expended for so many people on trying to keep things the same, which is really an attempt to kind of stifle or kill curiosity, because that would be the antithesis of it. And I think what happens so often, especially in the affiliate landscape, is they get so preoccupied with what CrossFit is, they forget why CrossFit exists, and they forget kind of, why they all got into this. But, back to the whole, innovation part of this, it is truly the duty of affiliate owners, as well as all CrossFitters, to innovate and evolve this thing, right? We have to grow this thing. It was never perfect, and it was never done in 2007. It was never done in 2010 or 15 or 20 or 25. It will continue to grow and evolve. And out of that will be offshoots of people like yourself and programs who can take this thing and be like, hey, let's apply it this way. Let's apply it here. And to your point about like CJ, that's a great way to innovate your program, right? What are people asking you for? And we talk about it a lot.
Level, I don't expect CrossFit HQ to make any changes at all. Like, no, they're not going to do anything.
That would be confusing as fuck.
But at the affiliate level, you can do whatever you want. Figure out like what's the end state for your athletes. Like where are you trying to get them? You want them to look as good as they've ever looked, feel as good as they've ever felt, be able to, be strong and perform as best as they ever had. There are a number of ways to do that, like context. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And you can have a different spin on it. You don't have to, you can drink the Kool-Aid a little bit without going full tilt and catching the comet. I think the smart gyms are doing that. Another guy I really like is Jason Leiden up in CrossFit Milford, does a really good job with the same thing. And another, these guys also seem to do things like with regard to like the higher skill movements, they seem to provide like more options for people where they're not even calling it scaling, but it's like, depending on your goal. Like, here's an example. In our program, every day we have 3 conditioning options. Because I realized if I just give them CrossFit, there are a lot of people that are not participating. So we got like hundreds of scores logged for all the lifts and then a couple for the conditioning. I'm like, why aren't they conditioning? They need to be conditioning. We're not being Thunderbro unless it's performance and aesthetics. So they need to condition in some way. And beyond just the fitness aspect and the broadness of your athletic ability, for the sake of your longevity, your cardiovascular health, your blood pressure, your VO2 max, like you need to condition. But I saw what was happening. People are like, I can't ever do kipping pull-ups again. I can't do X, Y, or Z. This is too dynamic, too hard. Handstands, forget it. My shoulder's gonna pop out of its socket. Squat snatch, my spine is gonna shoot out of my ass. So we came up with 3 options, and this is just our version of this concept. The first option, we call it grunt work. And grunt work is mixed modality conditioning, but without any barbells and without any higher skill movements. So it's like sled pushes, sandbags, carries, a little bit of strongman stuff, some monostructural things, but like just go out and do some work in the yard kind of thing, right? But very simple, requires almost no skill. Like you could get a person off the street, they could do the workout, no problem. You don't have to teach them the stance or the grip or anything like that. And then we have another option called energy system development, which I market as low impact. Like, hey, if you're feeling beat up and you don't want to lift any more weights, just do some cardio. It's just different energy systems, but like running, biking, skier, combos of those. And then we'll have a CrossFit option for people that really want to do CrossFit. And that's where they'll get the muscle ups and the snatches and the pull-ups. And even then, we keep the CrossFit very, very clean and simple. because it doesn't need to be complex or sexy to be effective, right? You can do thrusters and pull-ups and kick your ass. So I think just giving people those options, we saw participation shoot up. So imagine if you were a gym that had some version of that, some version of like, okay, maybe we do our lifting, whatever that is together, and then the conditioning, you go to your tribe, figure out what do you want to do. It's not that hard to run that simultaneously. You can even write the same workout and have everyone doing essentially the same workout, but with little tweaks in each of it, where maybe some people aren't using the barbell and maybe some people aren't even lifting weight.
Yeah. There's a lot of, that in and of itself is truly gold. And again, it kind of goes back to some people being so confused in terms of what they signed up for to become an affiliate. A lot of people think it's their job to just recite and repeat and communicate the dogma. And okay, that's fine. If that's your thing, I'm not going to tell you it's a bad thing. You're just kind of a training affiliate. But there's so much, I think anybody that looks at you, Dave, is like, man, he's just larger than life. He's fun. We're literally larger than life, but like he's fun. You look like you're having fun. And so much of that just comes out in the fact that you can just tell how fascinated you are with the curiosity, just of learning and pouring yourself into something. And it's interesting how few people do that. How many people pigeonhole themselves and just are like, I'm done here, right? Like I've learned everything, I'm done. Like, and I must just continue to do it. There's so much fun to be had and being curious and being like, hey, why do I do that? Right? Why do other people do that? And so I think it would be well served for people who do listen to this, just be like, maybe go learn something. Like I think I almost said it earlier, but probably one of the most prolific things ever said to me was like 2008 was Kelly Starrett. It was like it wasn't even a mobility WOD or thing or seminar yet. And I said something to him to the effect of like, man, you still seem like you're learning whatever. And he was like, do me a favor. The day you feel like you know everything, quit. Yeah. And I was like, coming from the guy that I was like, man, you're like the second coming of Jesus as it applies to mobility. And I was like, don't you already know everything? And he's like, I don't know shit. Right. And then I was like, oh, and he's another playful human. Right. And you look at all these people who are these pillars of, these beacons of evolution or innovation in our space. And there's one common thing. They're all curious as shit. They're all playing. They're all
you start accumulating tools. You just start accumulating these things in your toolkit, and then you can figure out the context by which you can use them. Like Mark Bell, okay, he's a great example of this. Like he was a high-level power lifter, and then he evolved and he got into bodybuilding, and now he's into running and all this weird stuff.
He's like the book of He Was.
And everybody ends at running and ayahuasca. That's where everybody ends.
That's where I'm at. Mushrooms and ayahuasca and running. But there is some cool stuff out there that years ago I would have looked at it and been like, that's silly. And that would have been wrong to assume that. So there's a guy, and just for your listeners out there, check these people out. There's a guy named Judd Leinhart who does some really interesting lifting stuff with like just all kinds of funky moves, rotational stuff, like using equipment different ways. I'm like, oh,
it just looks weird when you watch it. You're like,
you might not exclusively train that way, but like I've thrown that into my hypertrophy sessions and it's fucking crushed. And it also keeps it exciting for your members, right? There's another guy, David Weck, who has the Weck method. Now he's the guy who invented the Bosu ball, but he's got all this really cool, like head over foot kind of mechanical stuff and, bouncy weight vests and all kinds of neat things. It's like just thinking outside the box. And then if you guys check out even just like Landmine University, go look at all the different cool stuff you can do with a landmine, because all those things are blending form and function. They're blending this idea of moving athletically with resistance to develop the body, but also to grease the groove with these very real movement patterns. It's really cool stuff that you might kind of just steal some things for or just try it out. Like Andrew, when you just got into kettlebells, like go full fucking tilt into kettlebells. We're launching, we talked about doing this while you were here, Andrew. We're launching a kettlebell flow program with Jeff Martone's team, and Zach Filler, who's one of his head guys, is writing it, where it's like a kettlebell flow and hypertrophy program. If you like getting in there, but there's so many cool things to explore, and I wouldn't reduce yourself to one thing. I think that's one of the hard things about like the tone in CrossFit is it can be somewhat limiting But you don't have to be that way. You know,
Right.
you can continue to grow and reach and not be afraid. You know, I got a lot of pushback. You know, it's okay. Most of the people that were pushing back on me became clients at a point. So it's not a big deal.
We go back to the origin story, like even of CrossFit, like 2001, even before that. I think a lot of people forget that CrossFit itself, even still to this day, is one giant science experiment. This whole thing is a hypothesis, right? So in terms of how much you believe in it or otherwise, and if that's the case, it's our job as the quote unquote the participants or the scientists to continue to research to confirm or deny that hypothesis. And I think that's an important distinction in it, which is like, it's not that it was law. And you see this all the time in nutrition. Someone comes out with a nutrition hypothesis and it's both real or make believe until it's supported or denied. And like, people are like, it's law. I'm like, well, I mean, there's context, there's nuance. Like, are we looking for those two things? And there's so much to it that I guess back to the point of this, if anybody listening, you have to evolve in anything you do, your business model, the training program, even the way you are as a day-to-day person. And so many people are so invested in trying to get to a place and stay at that place, they stop thinking about the curiosity. But if you look at people like yourself, that's why I'm glad that you're on here. People obviously I think are drawn to you, or at least intrigued by you in many ways. They're like, what? And the thing that makes you is not the fact that you're just fucking huge now. It's that, dude, your ability to consume information and content and do it enthusiastically is undeniable. And I think that part is so magnetic to so many people. And if you look around, there's other people that do it too, right? And like, they're quirky, they're weird, but there's things to learn from them. If you just stop.
Yeah, there's something to learn from everybody. You know, there are people that I like and people that I dislike online. But there's something to learn from almost everybody. You know, even some of our direct competitors, you know, there are people like, I'm a fan, this guy's great. Some of them are like, I fucking hate this guy, but they're doing something right. They're doing something right if they're successful. And you were talking about like, you know, proving the method. I'm like, nothing speaks louder than results. And one of the things that we do that really, I think it kind of amplifies the efficacy of whatever method you're looking at is we have at least all of our private athletes get DEXA scans and blood work. And now we have objective metrics to really say, you know, and you were talking about studies. Studies are great, but I feel like a lot of times what I'm seeing, it doesn't completely match up with the study. Here's an example. You can't gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. That's something that, you know, a lot of physiologists repeated. According to this, you know, it's just not impossible. You can't have two of those things happening simultaneously. But I have DEXA scans that show the opposite when you do certain protocols, or like looking at the, you know, people's blood work, especially against their nutrition protocols, and looking at their A1C and triglycerides and hormone levels. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can pull into your system beyond the level 1 training guide that can really have like a lot of value if you're looking to create more value or separate yourself as a gym. And Andrew, we taught the level 1 and the level 2 together, and all that stuff we give people, it's a great starting point, right? Like take the level 2 coaching criteria. We say, this is what's important for a coach to do. Here's an example of how to do it. Now I want you to imitate what you're seeing. That's really what they're doing. Like, we're also actors, by the way, too. Like the level 1 staff is you're just playing a role. You're reading a script. You're playing a part of, you know, what CrossFit, how they want you to act and what they want you to portray. But then if you go outside of CrossFit, I encountered coaches that did nothing that was in the level 2 guide at all with regard to the criteria of coaching. And they were incredible coaches. They made all the mistakes that we told them not to make. And I'm like, this coach is still the best fucking coach I've ever been around. So like, what gives? There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of different ways to coach and to train and to do nutrition. You know, there's no one way to do it. So I think it's good to learn a system and to develop principles, but then you need to find your truth and find like what really works for you and your gym and your members. And that's a highly individualized thing that we can't put in a box. It doesn't fit in a box. It's just this very fluid kind of thing.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, this has been You boys could party all day.
It's
I know
recorded
that.
and she shuts us down. I don't even have any control here. I'll just head out now.
That's it's probably the first podcast recording where I feel like I've had no control. So I'll take what little I can have today.
All
So
right.
I don't even think we got
Let's do it again.
I've gotten very out of control at times. Like,
so I think
there's nothing inappropriate said.
no, it's completely fun. There's
we're doing it again and we're hitting record earlier because that first part of the conversation would also have been even better.
Yes, you missed our talk on anti-Semitism in the Middle East.
That'll be guaranteed to give us views for sure. But I know we'll have you back, Dave, because there's so much more we want to dig into. I'm glad we finally got you on here. So see you on the next one, guys. Thanks, Dave, for your time, and we'll definitely do this again.
We should, and I want.